I'm reading a new book. I'm reading A Restless Truth by Freya Marsky, and I'm loving it. It is such a good book. But there is something that I want to talk about in the first 100 pages of this book that I think is a good takeaway for other authors. So on page 1, it's mentioned that there's a parrot that needs to be fed. It's mentioned a couple more times that Maud needs to feed the parrot. At one point, Maud goes to get food for the parrot, but there's not an immediate afterwards her going to feed the parrot. And in fact, it's just not mentioned for over 100 pages whether or not she's fed this parrot. And as a reader, I'm sitting there going, oh my god, is the parrot okay? Is the parrot going to survive? Has the parrot been fed? Like, is the parrot going to get out and, like, in the search for food, cause chaos? And is this going to be an important plot point? And finally, when we get to the answer, no, the parrot was just fed off page. It was an irrelevant detail. But it did not feel irrelevant to me as a reader. And this is what I'm going to call an accidental Chekhov's gun, which, if you don't know, in theater, there's a concept of Chekhov's gun coming from Anton Chekhov, who once said, you don't hang a gun on the wall in Act 1 if you're not going to use it in Act 3. You do not set up such a big, important, possibly, relevant detail if you're not gonna use it. And it's really easy as an author to have accidental Chekhov's guns because we are trying to populate the world with, these details that make it feel real, make it feel lived in. We're describing a lot of things. And some of those things are going to twig on the reader's attention as more important than they actually are. A good example in my own work, I sent a book out to beta readers, and the first one I got back was being like, hey, so you mentioned this character stepped on a knife in, page 40, and for over 100 pages, I was waiting for it to come back. And it doesn't, because I, as the author, know it's irrelevant to the story. But the reader doesn't know that. And this is one of those details that I do think you do need outside eyes to really tell you when you have these accidental Chekhov's guns. But if you're self-editing, there are ways you can look out for them. If you have a detail that's mentioned multiple times, especially at least 3 times, that's going to feel like a setup to the reader. It's going to feel like you're setting something up. That detail is going to somehow be plot relevant. Also, if you are in a scene that not much is described, but this one thing is described a lot, yeah, that's gonna feel like a setup. If it's a incomplete task, like feeding the parrot, that's gonna feel like a setup. These are all things you can look out for to avoid accidental Chekhov's guns. But the biggest, easiest way is just to get somebody else to say, hey, have you fed the parrot?